John.
Yes.
Oh, I wasn't sure if you can hear me or not. I was wondering if we're waiting to 10 after the hours, Gloria, if we can discuss some other stuff, or just we're going to wait. That's not related to PBS.
Um, we can go ahead and start. I just wanted to give an opportunity for folks that, might be a few minutes late to start. So you can go ahead
Yeah, I
and ask
understand.
any question that you want, and we can try to give you the answer. I just wanted everybody to have the opportunity to hear. But go ahead, Gloria. We're
Yeah.
more than happy to hear
But
it.
this is not a related. This is not a related to PBS. I just have a question about the TTS. That's all. Because I just don't understand how. When I was trying to trade a trip, the trip stayed open for a whole week, and they wouldn't let me pick it up because they said I came in my duty day, my 15-minute grace period was at 12:04. I got in, so I don't understand why a true 2 day can't be a true 2 day for a trade. So they're making me try to pick up a 3 day instead of my true 2 day because of my 15-minute grace period. I know it's not related to PBS, but I just had that
Uh,
question. I really wanted to write something about it. I haven't had a chance to yet.
No, I think it's a very pertinent question because I do get those calls weekly about a 2 day or a 3 day that touches midnight, and
Mhm.
it technically is showing as another duty period in TTS. Beth, I know you have some experience with this when you worked at the Fabric, and maybe you're getting some of those calls when you're working special assignment doing Miss Awards. Could you maybe give Gloria a little bit of information about that?
Well, it's just, unfortunately, it's the way the system is set up. So, because the debrief is part of your duty, that 15 minutes, you're still on duty that 15 minutes. So, that's part of, let's say, the trip. So, it goes into the next day. So, that the system looks at it as a 3 day because it goes over midnight. And trust me, I've had that myself, and it drives me crazy when it happens, but it's just the way the system is set up.
So, Gloria, I think that we have enough complaints that this isn't working for our flight attendants that we will look down the road. I don't know that it's a negotiated piece or not, but it's certainly
Mhm.
an
Mhm.
IT issue that needs to be looked at. And as we all know, that there are more than one IT issue that's out there that's probably in a parking lot somewhere waiting to be addressed by the company. I understand, a lot of things, a lot of moving parts been going on, but that really is something that's hindering our flexibility within TTS.
Yes.
So we will definitely
Mhm.
bring it forward again. I've made notes of it right now as we spoke, and we'll take it forward. So thanks for that.
I
Uh,
appreciate it.
but
I appreciate
yes.
it because it just don't make any sense. We can't move these trips. I called scheduling. I called to help get this trip. I've been assigned a trip to Dallas. I'm heading now, but I'd rather fly out national. That was one of my questions. I'll bring that up later. You guys received my question about blocking certain. We have to try base, but we'll talk about that when we get to CBS
Okay.
training. But
All right.
thanks
Thank
for doing that. I appreciate it because it really needs to be addressed. And I'm sure it's not only me, but when we have a true 2 day, we get in at 11 something. That I know we have a debriefing, but all those things need to be count. That make me pick a 3 day for a 2 day. So anyway, so all
yes.
right then. Thank you for your help.
Yes, sometimes the debriefing is a hindrance to us, and sometimes it works in our favor for FAR legalities,
Mm-hmm.
etc. So it's twofold there. Anyway, so it's
Yeah.
almost 1:10. We're going to go ahead and start here. Thank you everyone for joining the DCA PBS Refresher course. I see we have several people on today. We're hoping that we have more that join us. But for those of you that are on here, we thank you for coming to our event today. We have two of our professionals that are based in DC that are PBS specialists, as well as TTS and other operating systems. We have Liz and we have Beth. Um, I asked these two ladies to help us because I know their extensive knowledge. Both ladies have worked in the Fabric for many years, and it's just very fortunate that we do have them in our base, and we're so happy that they have decided to help us. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to go ahead and let you ask your questions. We are in the bidding process now for the October PBS bid. That does close tomorrow on September the 15th at noon Central. So we do want you to ask all the questions that you have. If we can't get around to all the questions, or if we can't get you an answer, we will supply an email address later on in the program where you can go ahead and email your questions, and then we will get back to you with the answers, right? I just want to one more time reiterate to everyone that we are recording this program, so it's a requirement that I let you know that. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and let Liz and Beth go ahead and take over. If you know how to raise your hand, if you're on Teams, go ahead and raise your hands if you have questions. If you have dialed in, we're more likely going to just let you interrupt and just say, hey, I have a question, and say who you are. So when you do speak, we would appreciate if you did say who you are. And sometimes knowing your seniority, knowing where you're at in the order that PBS processes sometimes helps with the answer with our specialists here. So go ahead, Liz and Beth, go ahead and take over, and I will be here to help moderate the best I can.
Hello, everybody. I'm Liz.
Hi, I'm Beth.
So I'm going to start with quickly sharing my screen and showing everybody where to find the guidebook, because we're not always available for you, but all the answers are there. So can you see my screen? Can I get one person to give me a yes?
Yes.
Is my
Yes.
All right, perfect. So I'm at the flight service page right here, right now, everybody. Here, crew change, so important. Click on that. And if you look to the left of my screen here, preferential bidding, click on that. And I always guide everybody to the full PBS guide, okay? Because it has a lot of great information in it. Somebody just recently on Facebook asked if their bid was good. They were trying to bid, in addition to their vacation, all the days off for the rest of the month. And what they did was they clicked on all the days off, then they put a start of days off, and then they also put an end date of days off. And if you go to the guidebook, let me see if I can find days off tab. Give me a minute. Right here. And I'm going to click that. You can find this information under the days off tab. And right here, it says that these are incompatible properties. You don't want to mix the two on the same layer. And that's what I explained to the person on Facebook. They had maximized total days off. They had string of days off start on date, and they also had string of days off end date. It doesn't know what you want. So this is a great, great resource if nobody's available and you're in a pinch. Okay, so let me just jump out of that because I have it actually on my other laptop that's sitting next to me. Now I'm going to share my screen right now. What's important under your dashboard is I'm coming into the month. In the center here, it says existing credit. I have 12 hours of credit for vacation that cannot be waived in any way possible. However, carry over credit, if it was a trip, I could waive that to be in addition to my target credit range of what I set. So of everybody that's with us, is there anybody that needs to start real fresh, or would someone like to say what questions you might have right from the get-go? I'm not sure everybody's ability. I don't want to start to the basic unless people feel the need that they need to see it. Can anyone speak up for me?
Liz, we have a hand raised.
Okay. Since mine's on minimal, can you get the
Go
person
ahead,
who's
Ryan.
raised their hand.
Yeah, Ryan has his hand raised.
Oh, hi,
Can you un-
Ryan.
Yeah.
Hey, Liz, how's it going? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So if this is not the appropriate time for this question, then we'll do it whenever it is. So I currently have more than 7 days vacation in October, and I'm wanting to make sure I bid for a low line appropriately, and I want to make sure I'm doing that correctly. Is that making sense what
Okay.
I'm asking?
You sure are. Well, so believe it or not, you go ahead of everybody else with 7 days of vacation that doesn't have it, and they may be senior to you. However, the company does not have to offer many low lines, even if you have vacation, unfortunately. So you're automatic. So your target credit range, which we will speak of shortly, if you don't mind holding out, is where you want to cover yourself for the low line.
Sure.
Okay.
That's fine to wait. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Anybody else?
Yes,
Hey,
I have a
Liz.
Anybody?
question, Liz. I have a question.
Yep.
I'm driving.
Hi, Gloria.
Gloria.
Hi,
Hi,
sweetie.
everybody. I have a question. I think I submitted it about avoiding. I'm just talking about avoiding certain bases. So we have a tri-base. If I don't want to fly out of Baltimore nor Dallas, I only want to fly DCA. Where do I find that property to submit that request for my PBS?
Sure. Go to pairing.
I go to pairing.
And add additional search criteria. And there's a property there under that. It says co-terminal. You would click on DCA. I'm doing it add to search. So it's looking for all the trips that are now going out of DC. And there is 171 pages and there's 3 trips on each page. So do you bid specific or do you bid generic?
I bid specific.
Then you don't need that property. Specific is specific. It knows exactly where it's going, where it's leaving from, where it's spending the night. It does not know your position order and it does not know your waivers. So if you click on specific and then you turn around and add co-terminal satellite of DCA to the same layer, what you've done at that point is said, okay, I like all these specific trips, but now I also want you to choose from every single trip that goes out of DC as well. And I will tell you that specifics never seem to be recognized first. It will in most cases, I've only seen it be the co-terminal DCA pairings. So once again, if you're getting specific, you do not need to tell the system that it's out of DC because the system knows that already. Okay?
Yeah,
So
but
Liz,
I can't. It seems like I can't hold certain trips. I bid them, so I'm assigned trips because I haven't maybe bid enough, or the trips I did bid, I can't hold them.
Okay.
So that's why I got assigned Dallas, for instance.
All right. Well, then a couple suggestions for you is number one, we should always look at the award tab. For those of you who are online now, I'm clicking on my award tab. There's nothing there, but there will be on the 18th after 1 o'clock. Under the word dashboard that I'm pointing to will say view reason report. Okay. And that will give you an idea if you're not bidding enough pairings in your pairing pool, or whether you could hold it or not hold it. Did you not give enough rest in between trips when you could have had trips? Did you use the appropriate waivers? Okay. So my other suggestion to you is, I hope this is okay with everybody, but crap rolls downhill, and the downhill of our stuff is layer 7. If you don't think that you've bid enough, or you say, wait a minute, it's the last layer it's going to get to is layer 7. I'm going to load up layer 7. Couple thoughts in my head. I know your seniority is 1 days. 1 days fly off the shelf in DC. They seem to be not hard to get rid of for several reasons. Commuters not commuters, reserves. Reserves can hold 1 day is pretty easy, you know, with having just a couple of days off. A lot of people like 1 days. So you could just do that too. Or in layer 7, pick things that you know you can hold. Gloria, when this next bid comes out, I'll be more than happy to catch up with you somehow or some way, and we'll look at your award if you want me to assist to see if there was something you didn't get, because that really is crucial to bidding. It gives you a lot of information.
So Liz, this is John. If I could ask a question about that to clarify a little bit. So if a flight attendant is more junior within the line holder group, and they do want to just fly out of DCA, is there not an opportunity, but is there a situation that they could get co-terminal flying if they are forced into trips that are outside of their bid, right? If it's an LN layer, et cetera.
Yeah.
Would that DCA co-terminal property help them at that point? Because they don't want to go to Baltimore at all. They just absolutely don't. But because of their seniority, as you say, things slide downhill. Would that property help them in that aspect of it?
It would. They could always do on layer 7 just that property. Now, I want to show again how I just did this. I'm going into pairing, add more properties, and then co-terminal, DC, DCA, and I would put that in layer 7. And that's what I personally would do. If at that point you're more junior and you want to cover yourself, that is something you can do. Now, can I guarantee that you're going to get only DC? No, because I don't know your seniority and I don't know where things fall when the system processes. But if you want to be sure you have that opportunity, maybe you might want to put that in layer 6 instead of layer 7 and add maybe, so now I'm going to show you under my layers tab what I've done under view pairing set, and I'm going to go to layer 7. Although it's blank because I didn't fill out the rest of it. I apologize. When we do that, it will say all DC trips in this layer 7 right here. Okay. I'm going to return to the layer overview. But for just purposes of looking at things, it's not going to work right now because, like I said, I don't have my first few layers filled in. So, but that is something you can do. You could put it like on layer 6 and then maybe layer 7, maybe, I don't know if Dulles is closer or Baltimore's closer for the more junior people. Put on some trips in layer 7 because now you've covered everything out of DC on layer 6, as you see. Put it on layer 7, some Baltimore trips that you'd be willing maybe to work. But once again, I will have filled in layers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 with other options like Gloria specific trips. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That would be a way to get around it, and maybe layer 7 all 1 days regardless of the base. Those are just options and thoughts. Any other questions?
Hey, Liz, while you're talking about co-terminal, would you please go over the co-terminal mix in a in a pairing mix? Because a lot of people don't understand that.
In a work block size. Okay. So I'm going to pairing. Actually, it's underlined. Allow co-terminal in a work block. So I always do all 7 layers because I mix my trips between DC and Baltimore. I add it to my bid. This allows me to work back-to-back sequences. Let's just say 2 1-days back-to-back. Day 1 is out of DC, but day 2 is out of Baltimore. If I do not click on this allow co-terminal in a work block, it will automatically force me to have a day off in between before I'm allowed to work out of the other terminal. This is giving it permission to back up my 2 trips, even though it's out of 2 different terminals. Okay.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any other questions about what Liz is going over? I know we also mentioned about carryover time. Does anybody have any questions about that? I seem to get that question quite a bit. I know Liz touched base on it, but does everybody understand that you can incorporate it into your TCR, or you can have that outside of it when you're bidding? And also to touch base a little bit with what Liz said about the vacation low, and she's absolutely right. I mean, we get the reports every month from the PBS run for DC, and let's just say, for an example, that there are 30 people that are vacation low eligible. We may see a very small percentage, maybe 5 or 6 people that are able to hold the vacation low, and a lot of that has to do with the bidding practices of others, because we're all bidding, but the system is trying to accommodate everybody's request for the amount of hours that they want per month. And there are times that the system has to force hours to other flight attendants. So in that case, if the system feels that they're going to have open trips, they're not going to allow others to have the vacation low. And again, it also goes on who bids high. You know, it's a high and a low, but unfortunately, it's not a 1-for-1 in that aspect. It's more of how the system requires what seniority to hold certain hours, amount of hours. So. Okay, so we have about 14 or 15 people on. I know you guys have to have questions, so please raise your hand or just speak out. That's why we're here. We'd like to answer your specific questions.
I have a question. Can we bid specific in some layers and generic in others, or is it one or the other for the entire bidding process?
Okay, no, you can put specific in one layer and generic in another. You can actually put them in the same layer. However, the system does not recognize the specific over generic. So it's not recommended you do that. If you prefer certain trips, do those specific ones by themselves and then do the generic on another layer.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So maybe I should, oh yeah, come on in. Go ahead.
It's good. How are you doing? I do have a question. Allow co-terminal mix. Wouldn't you just put that in a general layer and not with trips? Or do you put it in when you're bidding both Dulles and DC Pacific trips?
Yeah, this one property, allow co-terminal, it's asking how to arrange your pairings that you put in your pairing pool. I want it to allow 2 trips that go out of different bases to be back to back without a day off in between. So yeah, that's why I do all 7, because I've got a mix of a lot of things in there. So that's why I do all 7 layers.
Okay, I just wanted thank you.
You're very welcome. And for a couple of people, Terry, I know you spoke up in the beginning. If you've got more basic questions that we've kind of superseded and didn't explain, hang on and we'll do it towards the end to get some other questions out of the way. Such as
okay, perfect, because I do have, I know our time was limited, so I tried to just listen, but I do have some additional questions, so I would appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. And I will stay after too, because we're joined together. So we should be able to hang in there together and you can ask the question and I show you. This is actually my PBS screen. This is not a company screen. This is my actual PBS screen. So
Beth
right.
and Beth and Liz, do you think that we could start at the top there from the dashboard and work over and explain what some of these properties mean, or some of these headings such as days off, pairing, line, etc., and maybe give a refresher on that for those that haven't really done this for quite some time, or just for anybody that needs a refresher?
Sure, no problem. So this, my main screen is under the dashboard. It basically is all about me plus the calendar and the summary calendar to the left. I'm DC based. There's my aircraft that I'm qualified on, and then my seniority out of the base and my percentage. There is also my existing credit. Those are the things that I really focus on when I'm bidding. And so because I am a high time flyer, I know I've got 12 hours of vacation credit coming in that I can't waive. All right. And I'm 37 out of the base of 455 and 8.1%, which at times doesn't also get me everything I want. But if you hit your days off, hit the plus sign, minimum days off between work blocks. A work block is a default of 1 to 6. If you don't change it, it's 1 to 6 days. You're willing to come to work 1 to 6 days. The default of between the 1 to 6 days is a single day off. People will change it. They're willing to come to work 3 to 4 days, and then they want 2 days off. I've seen other things. Yeah, when you start adding these properties, it restricts your bid. So understand and kind of keep in mind your seniority as far as minimum days off between work blocks. That's one of them. Maximize weekend days off. That doesn't mean it's going to maximize 2 weekend days off together, but it tries to give you that maximize total days off. The most in an entire month that it can give you. But once again, it's readjusting your schedule when you're doing things like that. String of days, when on date off, you always do the start. You don't do start and end on the same layer. And it's the same thing, string of days off, ending date. Waive minimum days off. That's one of my favorite ones because I'm a high time flyer and I know that the system is requiring me to have 11 days off in addition to my vacation. And that leaves me few days if I'm bidding low time trips to get high time in. So that's another one of my favorites right there, is waive minimum days off if you're a high time flyer. Pairing. These two properties, add more properties, actually puts pairings in your pairing pool. When you're doing search pairings, it's like looking through the bid sheets. So that's one of the things that I do. And I will just show you a little breakdown. I like to do high time 1 days. There are several ways to go about it. Pairing length of 1. And then I could do other properties and do minimum duty time. Let me find it. Minimum average credit per duty. I can tell it I want 7 hours or more. I'm adding it to the search. Now here's 2 pages of sequences out of our base that has 7 hours or more. So per se 7205. I like all those. There's something I could do. Each time you click and you add it to a layer, we maxed out in clicks. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there 500 Does anyone remember what the max number of Beth or
Yes.
John, the max?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's 300 now. It used to be 500. It's 300 now.
Oh, 300. So each time you hit that click, it counts, it adds up. So if you're someone who's more junior and say, wait a minute, if I do that, I'm going to run out. What's a way around it? All right. There is a way around it. If I like all these days that it goes out, 4, 5, and 6, and I want a shot at each one of those, I'm just going to click the pairing number. And I'm going to add it to my bid. And you can see it populated on the left side in the main calendar because I just bid a specific pairing. And it's one click, but all 3 days have been put into my calendar as giving me a choice of pairings in my pairing pool for that layer. Okay. So I could also do the same one, 7212 down here at the bottom. I can also add it to layer 1. Okay, now they all populated. I will show you something real quick. If I hit my layers tab and I go to view pairing set, you see all my layer 1 is the DCLA turn. We know that's cool because that's what I just told the system to do, right? So I've seen this before. I'm back in my pairing pool. I'm hit search pairings and avoid aircraft. I want you all to see what happens. Per se, I don't get any of this and I go, oh, you know what? I want to avoid the 737 MAX. I'm going to add that to my layer 1. Now watch what just happened. We all think that it's just, you know, just in case this operates on a 737 MAX, it's not going to award that to me. That's not what happens with that one particular property. What it just did is it added, let me get back here. I didn't add it. Hang on. Let me add that property. Avoid aircraft, 737 MAX. Oh, add it to search. Let me add it to my properties. Give me 1 second. I have a goober head from sinuses today, so bear with me. Avoid aircraft, 737 MAX, layer 1, add this bid. Now, when I go back to my layers tab, view pairing set, look what just happened to my specific pairings. This is something that I've had friends tell me they've done. This is what I wanted on page 3. But look at all the other stuff that was now just thrown into my bid that I was not thinking was going to happen. So that is a problem we do see with some bids. So I do not want to do that. Just remember, I've told the system specifically what I do want. So that's what I need. The only thing it doesn't know is my position order. Okay. So I could actually repeat these in layers 1 and 2, and I could do a position order of, say, just position 1 to layer 1. Then I can add another position order. Let's say 02, 03, 04. It's probably a 737. Oh, I don't want it there. I want it there. Layer 2. Okay. Go back to my layers tab. You see I've repeated the trip, but what I changed up was my position order. So in layer 1, I'm asking for these specific ID pairings, and I only want position 1 first. I want it to notice position 1 only. And then in layer 2, I'm saying, okay, now let's look for 2, 3, and 4. Okay. There's other pairing properties, but remember when I hit add more properties, it's putting it into my pairing pool. Hitting search pairings, it's just like looking through the bid sheet. I can add more criteria and I can refine it or filter it more. Another thing I like to use is maximum landing per duty. I always go, okay, what sequence do we have in DC that only lands once a day? Add to search criteria. And that is it. And sadly to say, I have vacation, so I can't even try for this trip. But that's the only one. But hey, maybe I said, okay, let's go for two landings per duty. So now I've got 105 pages, and you could filter it out even more. I mean, there's plenty of filters. Layover city, prefer landing at, time, report between, release between. So there's plenty of filters in here. If you don't like those long sits, maximum connection time is one of them. So I'll just go back real quick. I'm going to clean this up real quick. Let me get rid of this. Somebody's
So
printing.
while you're doing that, Liz, Liz or Beth, either one, all of these properties and these different ideas that we have here in PBS, in a smaller base and with a smaller bid sheet as we do have in DC, does using a lot of these properties confuse the system and maybe not give you exactly what you want because you told so many things that you were looking for that maybe at the end of it, it's just going to give you an LN layer, give you your
John,
TCR. Would that happen?
depending on your seniority, I think the less properties you use, the better.
And
Yeah,
remember, I was using the search. I'm looking through the trip sheet and I'm sorry, I'm hearing either printer or some noise in the background. Yeah. Put it on mute. There we go. Awesome. So John, I'm just using the search. I'm filtering out the trips through that criteria through the bid sheet. I'm not actually adding these at this moment to my bid, okay? So it's when I start clicking on that and then I put it in a layer is when it starts to pop into my pairing pool, all right? Or if I'm using it through add more properties, that gets added into the pairing pool. So more properties, I'm surprised shuttle's there. So let's just do shuttle, layer 1, add it to the bid. And now I'm gonna look at my layers tab and see what just got populated. So I'm gonna get rid of that 3026. And I'm gonna view the pairing set. And here is all the things that are inclusive of what has a shuttle trip flight on it, okay? That's the difference between those two tabs under the pairing. Add more properties actually puts the pairings in your pairing pool. When I'm just doing search, I filter it out. Pairing length, 2, layer city, Boston, one of my favorites. Add to search. Now, this is all the trips. There's 46. Let me get rid of avoid landing. Well, these are the trips that, why did it not, bear with me one second. Pairing length. Oh, mistake. I made my first mistake there, you guys. Did you see I said pairing length of 1? There is no 1 day that layovers anywhere. That should have been 2. There we go. Okay, so now it filtered out all these trips. It still has not been added to my pairing pool. I'm just looking at it right now. For me to add these to the pairing pool, I will either have to click the day and add it that way, or I can click the pairing number to add all of those days into the layer. There you go. Now, once again, this was a question, I'm not sure, I can't remember who asked it, about adding specific with generics. This is a good example of specific with generic. My specific is pairing 23505. My generic is shuttle. The system doesn't recognize one over the other. I will tell you that it tends to pick up more of the generic. And here's my pairing set for layer 1. So it's a generic and specific mix. The system doesn't know what I really want. So it'll pick anything out of this group and award it to me if I can hold it and try to reach my target credit range.
And Liz, while you're talking about how the system awards, and it doesn't award one over the other, just a good thing to mention is when the system is also awarding, it does not go in chronological order. It does not award by highest credit to lowest credit. There really is no rhyme or reason how the system order. It's just random, pick and choose.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
So Beth, you're saying if a flight attendant calls out certain sequence numbers, if that is open at their seniority, it will give them that pairing? Or are you saying that it would be confused in this situation and randomly give something? I'm not following.
Okay, so when it's awarding, it randomly gives. Oh, what it doesn't do. Okay, so everything you have, let's say in layer 1, it doesn't go, okay, let me look at the first, then I'll look at the third, then I'll look at the fourth, it doesn't award that way. It just looks at everything you have in layer 1 and it starts picking. So if you can only hold, let's say you can only, I mean, of course it gives you what you can hold, but if you can hold everything in layer 1, but your target credit range is set at 60, and you have 80 hours worth of trips in layer 1, it's just going to go to 60, and it might pick the first and it might pick the 25th. It's not going to go in order.
Okay, so that makes sense. So then a flight attendant would possibly use layer 1 as their wish list, if you will. Maybe they put everything in there that is what they desire to fly, and then as they go down in the layers, do something different with maybe more of a reality to what they can hold at that point.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, layer 1 is your dream bid. So just make sure in layer 1, if you can basically hold everything you're bidding in layer 1 and you think, okay, this is pretty much what I can hold, make sure it's the days that you want to hold. Because we do have people that say, well, I really wanted the 25th over the 30th, but it gave me the 30th. Well, if the 25th is more important to you, put the 25th in layer 1, put the 30th in layer 2.
So then we can say all things are equal then in your layers at that point.
Exactly. It weighs everything equally within a layer of what you can hold.
Okay.
So what's on the screen now is my layer 1, and I just populated 2 one-day trips. The first one is 7204 going out of the 4th, 5th, and 6th. It goes to Orlando and back. Also on layer 1, I populated 7205 on the 4th, 5th, and 6th. It goes to LA and back. The system does not know which one is more important to me in this group. It doesn't care to look for the 4th first, then the 5th and the 6th. It doesn't want to look at 7204 before 7205. It's random. It might take the 6th. It might take the, 7204, even though I've got it on top on the 6th, I might get that. But then maybe I'll get 7205 on the 5th as well. It does not know which one I specifically want. So you would have to separate them out on another layer. If I wanted the Vegas turn first, I would have that on layer 1 and Orlando on layer 2. Okay.
Okay. So do we have any other questions about what we're talking about under pairing, under the pairing heading before we move on? Just go ahead and raise your hand or just speak out if you have a question for Liz or Beth. Okay, so we can move on, I guess, if you ladies would like to.
Okay, so I'm not going to discuss, I'm going to have hand it over to Beth in just a minute about the target credit range, but under line is telling the system, it's giving it two things. How it wants to know how to arrange your pairings that you put in your pairing pool is basically what line properties do. Or you're telling it maybe allow double ups, pairing mix in a work block, commutable work block. Maybe I just want to do trips starting on Mondays, work block size, maximum credits, waivers. Very important waivers when you're high time flyers is use waive 24-hour rest in domicile. If you have a sequence, which I don't think in DC we have many that are over 24 plus what, an hour and 15, so it would be 25-15 rest anywhere. Do we have any trips that have 25-hour rest anywhere?
We
I don't
have
think
not
so.
had them, no.
Yeah, so that one won't be as much in play. However, for those high time flyers that want to do the Vegas turns and the LA turns, say you want 3 in a week, you're going to have to use this wave 30 hours in 7 days because 3 LA turns is over 30 hours. And as long as you get enough rest between the two trips, I think you can waive minimum domicile rest so you can do back-to-back Vegas turns. Otherwise, it doesn't, I don't believe there's 11, what is it, 11 something, 11:45 that you need, Beth?
There's not.
There's not enough rest?
No, there's not enough rest. You have to waive it. And there's not enough rest for a lot of them. Like if you do Vegas and then you do Dallas, there's not enough rest on that either.
Okay, so you're going to want to waive your minimum domicile rest. If you have a carryover trip and you want it to go above your target credit range, you're going to want to waive your carryover credit. If you're doing avoid a person, you can do that, but you're going to go junior to that person. Your seniority becomes junior to that person. So if you're, say, 30 years and you've avoided somebody who's at 20 years, your seniority is going to be below them and at 20-year seniority. And of course, buddy with is if you want to fly with someone else and you want to try to bid trips together. You've got that buddy with tab.
Hey,
So
Liz, has a question.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, was that for me to ask the question?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
So something I just thought of, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe there's no way to get around this. So oftentimes I'll say I want, on certain days, I want just 1-day trips. But there's trips I like that, like I'm bidding generically. I'm not bidding specific because I'm to that point in my layers. And I want, all 1-day trips. There's some trips I like that get in, like they get in at like 11:50 or 23:50 at night. So you block in with the 15 minutes past midnight, but that system counts that as a 2-day trip when it's really not a 2-day trip. Is that something that has been brought up with the company about the PBS system, or how do you bid with that? Because like they'd always throw, like it'll mess it up and throw it in as a 2-day when it's really not a 2-day. Or for instance, maybe I just want 2 days and I put 2-day in, but those trips all show up as 2 days when they're really not, and I don't want that trip showing up.
John? We did address this at the beginning. However, we'll be more than happy to say it again. So John, are you there?
I'm here. I was multitasking, so I didn't hear the full question. I think we're talking about trips that touch midnight. Is that what we're talking about, Ryan?
Yes.
Yeah. So are you saying that in the PBS world, that a trip that touches midnight would not be awarded to you as a pure, let's say, 2-day? It would be looking as a 3-day, and it wouldn't award it to you? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it goes both ways. Sometimes
Right.
maybe I want a 1-day trip, and it cuts out all those 1 days that get in late like that. Or I say I want a 2-day trip, but then it throws those trips that get in past midnight in as a 2-day trip when it really, it's still only worth 5 hours per se, but I want a 2-day trip. But when you start doing all these other things, like saying I want a minimum of 10 hours, it just seems like the system starts getting all messed up, and it really makes it go chaotic.
Yeah, we had identified that in TTS, I believe Gloria brought this up earlier, that in TTS that's what's happening with these touching of midnight, even if it's just the debrief that's after midnight. So we've taken note of it, and we'll get back to you, Ryan. I know APFA scheduling department and contract department knows that this is going on, but we really probably need to try to get to some resolution, because we're getting more complaints such as yours, with the way the systems are operating. I don't have an answer for you right now, but we will bring this back around. Thank you for bringing it up.
Okay, so for now, you just have to go in and look at all the specific trips and try to delete stuff if it's in there, or add stuff in.
Ryan?
Yes.
Okay, another thing you can, when you're bidding generic, I mean, you can still go into your view pairing set.
Right.
And look at everything and then you can remove it. Now, let me ask you this. Have you tried doing it that way? And have you gotten something you didn't want, or did it not give you something? When you bid just like generic 1 days, it won't give you the trips that go into the next day. I'm just trying to figure out a way to do it.
Right, because if I bid I want just 1-day trips, but I want, I like those trips to get in late because I'm a night owl, but but I'm to the point where I want to just be generic, but it will not give you those as an option if you bid just 1-day trips.
Right.
But then if you put 2-day 2, then you have so many trips. It's like you're deleting so many trips. It's crazy.
Right. I wonder if you used report between and release between, if it would populate those 1 days.
I've tried. I mean, I tried that before when we used to have red eyes, because I like working red eyes. And that was a huge, I never did. Maybe I just don't know what I'm doing, but I could never figure out how to use that property because I wanted red eyes, but then it would throw in every 3-day, because it considered a 2-day red eye a 3-day because of the way it worked. So it was just crazy. I don't know. Maybe I just don't know what I'm doing.
No, I don't think that's it. That's a very interesting dilemma, and so that has to be Brian, I might get with you on this. I'm on the Miss Award team, so I talk directly to the PBS admins, and this is something I'm going to bring up to them because we always meet before the 18th at noon Central when the awards come out. They give us a lowdown on what's going on with the bases and all that. And I'm going to bring this up to you. And so maybe if John wants to send you my my telephone number or whatever, and that way we can be in touch, because I want to bring this up with them, because this is very interesting, and something's got to be, this isn't quite right, and I want to see what they have to say about this.
Beth, do you think that the duty periods would be something? I mean, isn't there a property that you can choose a certain amount of duty periods and things like that?
It could be. That would be 1 duty period. And I'm not sure if that would work if you did like a 2-day, 1 duty period release. I don't know if you used all those properties, if that would. But then that's, then I don't know if you're just looking at all more than one day. I mean, if you're looking at 1 days that come in before midnight and 1 days that come in after midnight, you don't want to use all those properties, because it's only going to show you the ones if you have to use all those properties that come in after. So there must be a way, and if there's not a way, then they need to fix that.
So have you used allow double up or allow multiple pairings, Ryan?
Well, it's not a double.
I have not, no.
It's
well,
not
if it would be
no, because he's in the afternoon and coming in after midnight, so that's not a double up.
But the off-duty time is still in day 2.
Now, it's still not a double up. Double up is with the half hour between release.
Right, but
And-
multiple pairings gives you that you have to have a legal rest for allow multiple pairings. So would that help?
No, because what he's trying to do is get those trips after midnight that are 1 days to populate. And that's not going to populate those trips if you use multiple pairings. But that's just going to allow it, but it's not going to populate the trips.
Oh, right. Okay, I see what you're saying. You're searching for those trips, Ryan.
Right.
Is that, or is it that you tried to bid them?
He's trying to bid them.
Like if I bid, I want 1 days on a certain layer, like set layer 6. Okay, I just want 1 days. Those trips that get in late, it doesn't populate those because it considers it a 2-day.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to figure out how to populate it into when I want to bid generically, which I often do towards the end. I want to be able to have those in there without having to go this roundabout weird way.
Right.
So I think there's going to have to be a way to identify a trip that starts on a duty period, and regardless of the debrief, that it should populate, right? Beth, don't you think that that's where we need to go with this? Yeah.
And suggestion, John, is a good one. That might be something worth trying, is the 1 duty day. So see, that's still, if you put in the pairing length 1 duty period, release at
30 or something.
Whatever. Is that going to populate those trips? I'm not sure.
Ryan, do you think during this bid process you could try that and report back to us if that's populating those trips for you?
Probably not this bid, honestly, because I have so much vacation time.
Right.
I don't have the ability to be so cavalier about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And probably not in the next few months after that either, since November, December are holidays. I wouldn't mess with it then for sure.
But come January, I'm game to try anything.
Well, so what I suggest is, or what I will do is that we will take this to APFA, and I'm sure that they've heard this before. This probably isn't the first conversation about this, but it could be on a parking lot list somewhere where, the company is going to look at it at a later date. We get that quite a bit with these scheduling systems. Of course, the company that runs the PBS would have to be involved. What is that, AOS, Beth? Is that AOS?
Vendor.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of people that need to put a set of eyes on this, but we'll certainly bring it up. And because it's very valid. I mean, if those 1 days that are Dallas turns that get in, debrief after midnight are not populating, then that's not good. But somebody is bidding those. Somebody is either getting those in a generic form because they are being filled. So I'm not sure how people are doing that in the way that you're saying you're trying to populate them in. So maybe it is the duty period that they're searching for, 1 duty period.
John, and I still will talk to the admins about this, and I'll get back to you, and then you can always get to Ryan with what they're saying, how to populate those trips.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so we're at our halfway point here, and I think we're doing pretty well. I think we can go ahead and continue with the dashboard and give some information to the flight attendants. Especially we'd like to talk about the TCR. I know that's a big one for folks and how that works. So Beth, do you want to go ahead and touch base on that right now?
Sure. Okay. So TCR, your target credit range, is telling the system how many hours you want to fly, basically. What you have to remember is TCR is cumulative through the layers. It's not layer specific. So if you bid in layer 1, 40 to 50, and then in layer 2, you bid 50 to 60, what the system really is looking at for layer 2 is 40 to 60, because it remembers the low and it remembers the high. So even though you're in layer 1 at 40 to 50 and you're in layer 2 at 50 to 60, and let's just say you keep going up, it's always going to remember the low. It's always going to remember the high. So when it gets to that layer 2, it's going to remember the high 60 and the low 40 from layer 1.
So if we really don't want to fall into that targeted credit range, that we have our average credit range, we would not incrementally increase our TCR. We would try to put a hard stop on the hours that we're looking for. Is that
right? So
right?
yeah, if you're at a seniority where you know you can hold 80 hours or 90 hours or how many hours, depending on your seniority, yeah, you can just bid, let's say 70 to 80 and put that in all 7 layers. But just make sure that you can hold that you're not going to be held to a higher TCR, because if that's the case, because you have to look at the base average every month. And I always recommend you cover that base average. So if the base average is 82, when you get to layer 7, I would bump it up to 85. So if you're doing 70 to 80 in all your layers, in layer 7, just make sure you covered that base average. So that would be 70 to 85.
So
And
the month of October, we had a starting average of 83 for DC. So if somebody wanted, if a flight attendant wanted to fly a maximum of 80 hours, but the system needed to give the average to them, how would they bid to cover that so that they could bid trips that they desired?
right. So again, in layer 7, if you wanted to just bid up to 80, that was your desire, do it in layers 1 through 6. But then when you get to layer 7, make sure you cover that by going up to 85, because the system awards in 5-hour increments. I mean, you could put 83 there, but the system's going to change it to 85 because it awards. And I mean, that's our terms of for the month. So in layer 7, make sure you cover that just in case you're held to that higher TCR. Because if you don't, if you put 70 to 80 in all 7 layers and it gets to you and it says, no, we need you to fly 83 hours. What's going to happen is you're going to go LN, which means your award came from layer 9. When you do that, it actually can throw all your line constraints and your days off out the window. And it awards you LN. It tries to stay within your pairing pool if it can, but it can, like I said, doesn't necessarily mean it will, but it can just throw your line constraints out. So better to not go LN if you can help it. That's why in layer 7, just cover yourself. And again, depending on your seniority. If you're really senior and you know you can hold that, then don't worry about it. But again, if you're at a seniority where you're not sure, and you kind of know because you know from the past how much you've held, and then just cover that. The other thing was the question about the vacation low. The vacation low is 40 to 69 in all 7 layers. That's how the system recognizes that you want vacation low. So if you have 7 days or more, you're eligible for vacation low. You bid 40 to 69 in all 7 layers. But as Liz said, and John said, there's a possibility you might not be able to hold vacation low. So if you bid 40 to 69 in all 7 layers, what happens? It gets to the 7th layer, you're 40 to 69, it can't give you that. It readjusts your TCR to 70 to 75, and it tries to award you that. If it cannot, at your seniority, award you 70 to 75, then it readjusts again, and your TCR becomes the default 70 to 90. So just remember, when you're bidding vacation low, it's a gamble. You might be able to hold it, but if you can't, you might end up with 88 hours. It kind of just all depends. And there's no way of knowing that ahead of time.
So Beth, would layer 7 be the adjustment there for them if they didn't want to go into the default of 70 to 90? Would they bid up to 75 or something in that layer? Maybe
Well, see,
8?
that's the catch-all, because if you bid in layer 7 to 75,
Right.
you're no longer bidding vacation low. So you're no longer, it's no longer reading vacation low. Now,
Okay.
it doesn't mean it won't award you between 40 and 69 hours if you can hold that at your seniority, but you're no longer bidding vacation low, because vacation
going ahead of the class, right? In a sense,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
Okay. So that's a very good point to stress if you're trying to do the vacation low. And I know coming up in the last quarter of the fiscal vacation year here in DC, we have quite a bit of vacation. And I think that's, if flight attendants are looking to bid low, that's a good learning tool there. Stay between 40 and 69. So thank you for that. That's a good piece.
Plus, then you also protect yourself again in your pairing pool for that, utilizing layer 7, or even layer 6 and 7 with your pairing pool in case it doesn't allow for you to have that low time. At least it has something to pick from.
Okay. So Beth, did you want to talk about anything else there under the line properties, or did we want to move on to the layer and talk about the Christmas tree and some different things there that might help folks when they're doing their bids?
Yeah, because I think Liz probably pretty much, you talked about the lines, didn't you, Liz? The line properties. Yeah,
Yes.
so she pretty much covered that. So yeah, we can move over to the Christmas tree, as they call it.
Right. So
Go ahead, Liz.
to protect yourself in your pairing pool, you definitely want to use all 7 layers. I always talk about, it's a good example for some of the senior people who want low time. And let's just say the number 1 person, if she wanted to do 7 of the Vegas or LA turns, they're worth 1045, I believe. Let me populate that real quick. Bear with me.
Okay, Liz, while you're doing that, Ryan has a question.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I feel like I'm talking too much, but
You're not. You're not.
So this vacation low, this is something I've never heard before. This is really good. So if you want to bid vacation low, you should be putting 40 to 69 in all 7 layers.
That's correct.
And then you said if you can't hold that, it's going to then go to 70 to 75. And if you can hold that, that's where it's going to put you, even though you haven't bid that. And then if you can't hold that, it goes from 70 to 80.
90, 70 to 90.
70 to 90, but it's going to stop where you can hold.
It's going to stop where, your seniority, can hold. Exactly.
Okay. So because of vacation, you can do this 40 to 69. But if you didn't have vacation and you did that, then it's going to give you an LN if you can't hold that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But it won't when you have vacation. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So I wanted to share real quick with you guys, since we're still talking about vacation law, I wanted to share some of the numbers that we had in September once the award was populated for September. So we had 102 flight attendants that were qualified for vacation low in the month of September. The system awarded 31 people, so that was 30% of the qualified. So that's just how, we talked about that not everybody would get the vacation low. So, a lot of people could have ended up getting, higher lines than they had anticipated because they only gave 31%, 31 people the vacation low. And that was really about a company average when we look across the board here. Phoenix and some other places had a higher average percentage rather. that's about what they're offering, about 20 to 30% out of the qualified people. And that was for the month of September. I really think that during the holiday months, you'll see a lot less vacation low. But then again, we don't have that many people that hold 7 or more days in those holiday months, unless you're very senior. So I just wanted to share that with you with the vacation piece.
Right. So in your pairing pools, I'm just basically creating a bid so you could see just basically how this works. So I've got one trip worth 10 hours and 39 minutes right there. And I've placed it in layer 1. Then I've turned around and I've taken 3 trips worth 1047. So I'm adding those up. Bear with me as I do this. 2, 31. Okay. 21, 26, and 10, 47, 13, carry the 1, 1, carry the 1, 2, 32, 13, and another 10, 47. I should be using my calculator on my phone that does time, because we do have those that calculates hours and minutes. So just to let you all know that. So that's about 43 hours. So if I was senior and I wanted to do what Ryan, what you're thinking of, and just say your trips are, you want to do 40 to 69, I could add more trips on layer 2, layer 3 at this, layer 2. And that'll get me at over 53, 54 hours right there. And say another trip on layer 4, if it's going to force me to more time, I could do that as well. I'm going to move this trip up. No, wrong layer on that one. Let me move that one down, because that's not my, I want to move that trip down. Bear with me. I want this trip to go down. Goober head, I'm sorry. I want that to go to layer 3. And you see how I'm building up my time in case it forces me to a higher target credit range, and I don't, then I'm protecting it. I actually am creating an entire 80-hour line, and I'm breaking it up. I'm putting the 40 hours, hoping that it'll stop at 40 on layer 1. And then let's just say it won't stop at 40. It makes me go to 50. Well, it has another trip on layer 2 to pick from. And then I did another one on layer 3 if it forces me higher. Now, if you're more junior, you're going to just put multiple trips at some point. Like we said, layer 1 is your dream bid. Okay. So you still want to do 40 to 69, maybe on layer 1, and then create more trips from your pairing pools from 2 to 7. Okay. Now I'm going to look at my layers tab, and you can see that my Christmas tree is real small because I only put single trips on it. You generally want to have your Christmas tree to come wide like that. And if you've got zeros, that's because everything that I did not put in from layer 4 to 7 populated what was left in the packet, except for Odans and red eyes, correct, Beth?
I'm sorry. Say that again, hon.
From layer 4, it populates everything that's left in the pairing pool except for Odans and red eyes, correct?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay.
So Liz,
you don't want zeros. You definitely don't want zeros. Use your layers, all 7 of them. Unless you're a realistic bidder, because I know a couple people that are very junior, but they get their first layer and they just bid specifically. So
and that's the question, yeah. Right? I didn't know if that you should leave those layers at 0. So thank you. We were thinking the same line there. So you should try to have sequences or pairings in those layers, right, all the way through 7.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, does anybody have any questions about bidding bidding in the layers tab and looking at your Christmas tree and moving things around? I know I usually just do a generic bid, you know, and I'll go in and tweak the generic bid, or I should say the standing bid, because it depends on the bid package for the month. And sometimes some of the properties that I have in there will give me a flat line, like you see in Liz's example there in layer 4. And I'm trying to build more a realistic line because of my seniority. So I would go in and I would change some of those properties. And as you change those properties out, you can see where that old Christmas tree will start to build. I think, and I'll ask this question to the ladies, I think that layer 1, layer 2 is very important layers for your bid, right? So you would want to populate more of the sequences or the pairings in those layers. Is that true?
Layer 1 and 2 are more your dream bid, your dream layers. So put in what you really want in those layers. And then in layers 6 and 7, your lower, that's when you want to populate all the stuff that you could live with, but they're not your favorite.
So what I have from the September PBS, final sheet that we received, we had in DC that we had layer 1. There were 61% of the pairings were given out of layer 1. So that I think that's pretty good. That's the highest that we've had in the company for all the crew bases. We had 61.5% that were awarded out of layer 1.
So John,
that the people are bidding correctly? Is that how you read that?
not necessarily.
Okay.
Because if they put properties together that throw in, generic pairings in the pairing pool, it's going to award you from layer 1 a lot of times, such as a void aircraft with specifics. So how realistic are those numbers?
Right. So yeah, exactly. So if they might be awarded from layer 1, but is it sequences that they want and they meant to bid in layer 1?
So you're saying that the properties that they put in, if they're strictly putting in sequences or pairings, then that would be a pure layer 1. Then we could say they walk away from PBS saying that they got what they wanted to hold. But you're saying if they have properties in there that could skew this, and or am I reading that wrong from you?
No, that's right. If they have added properties into their layer 1 that has populated trips they did not want, and then they're awarded from layer 1, yes, it's a layer 1 award, but that's not the trips that they wanted. It's like Liz said, if they bid 10 specific trips in layer 1 and then they bid the generic avoid 737 MAX, okay, now they've got hundreds of trips in layer 1. So yeah, they got a layer 1 award, but it wasn't those 10 specific trips that they bid.
Okay, that makes sense. So we have a question. Paige, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
okay, great.
Okay.
Hi guys. This was in response to Liz's example here, and I'm not really understanding it. So tell me what would happen if, okay, Liz wanted low time. She only wanted like 4 of those for, say she did a TCR of 40 to 45. If she put 10 trips in layer 1, because she would be happy with any of them, would it stop at like the 43 hours and just give her any 4 of them? Or, I mean, I don't understand why. I mean, TCR layers and bidding layers don't correspond.
No, they
They-
don't.
They
Layers.
do not.
Okay,
TCR
so
layer specific.
all right. So I guess I didn't really understand why the 4 were bid in layer 1, and then she went down and was saying, well, if I can't, if they're making me fly more time, this is why I put this one in number 2. Is it just because it was kind of the next trip and the next day where she would have wanted something?
So Paige, what she's saying is, okay, so let's say you wanted 40 to 45 hours and you just put 4 trips in there that you wanted. Okay, that's all. I mean, you can put more and it can pick and choose what it wants to give you. But let's just say you wanted those 4 specific trips. And then in layer 2, okay, it's like, okay, but it's not going to award you 40 to 45 hours because you can't hold it at your seniority. So now it's going to go to layer 2 because it's going to look for more. So she's just saying in layer 2, you could start adding more pairings. That way, if you cannot hold 40 to 45, it's going to go to layer 2 and look for more pairings.
Okay, but if she had all 6 of those trips up in layer 1 because she didn't really care, and it said, okay, you can't hold 40 to 45, we're going to make you hold 53. I mean, then they would just pick maybe 5 trips from that top layer.
Okay, it can't just say 53. Okay, so the target credit range, it has to move through your layers. Okay, if it's in layer 1 and you bid 40 to 45 and you can't hold it, it's going to go to layer 2 and it's going to look at what you bid there. It's not just going to go, okay, we're giving her 53 hours. Okay, so it's going to look at layer 2. At layer 2, you bid 40 to 50. Okay, nope, she still can't hold 40 to 50. It's going to keep looking to cover that 53 hours. It's going to keep looking in your layers to find a target credit range that covers that 53 hours. If it cannot, you're going to go LN. If it can, it's going to go to the layer that you have bid 40 to 55, let's say, and let's say that was layer 4. So it's going to award you from layer 4. But your trips your pairings or your sequences might come from layer 1 and layer 2, but your TCR award came from layer 4. Does that make sense?
Honestly, no. And it never has. I'm sorry to say. I mean, it's as many years as we've been doing this.
Okay. So look at it two separate entities. Okay.
And can I interrupt for just a sec?
Sure. Go ahead.
Because I mean, God bless you all. I'm glad you understand this, but examples are always made for, somebody who can hold these things. For people like me, and I'm sure there's a lot of other junior people on here. Oh my God, I have zero idea of what the heck I can hold. So I can't just put I can't use a layer to only put 4 trips in. I mean, that's not realistic.
Right. No, you can't. And it's just an example. It's not, you at your seniority, you know about how many trips. So let's just say in layer 1, you have to put 20 trips. And I don't know if that's correct, incorrect, whatever. But let's just say you have to put 20 trips. But what I'm saying, when you're looking at your pairings and you're looking at your TCR, think about it as 2 separate entities, okay? So what it does, it tries to award the TCR that you can hold at your seniority. So it's going to keep looking through the layers to find that TCR that you can hold. If it's in layer 1, let's say you bid in layer 1 70 to 80, and you can hold 72. It's going to stop at layer 1 and it's going to award you pairings from layer 1. You're all set, you're done. But if you put 60 to 70 in layer 1 and you can't hold between 60 and 70, it's going to go to layer 2 and it's going to see what you bid in layer 2. Well, in layer 2, you bid 60 to 70 again. Okay, no, it still can't give you 60 to 70. So it's going to go to layer 3. In layer 3, you bid 60 to 75. Okay, bingo. It can give you 72 hours and stop. So that's where your award came from, layer 3. But your pairings were all from layer 1 because you could hold all those pairings at your seniority that were in layer 1.
Okay.
Because you bid all these pairings, because at your seniority, like you just said, you don't know what you're going to hold.
Right.
So you put in all kinds of sequences in layer 1. And it
Right.
picked enough sequences to get you to 72 from layer 1.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that makes sense to me, but I mean, could you well, here, did you do this? You put trips on every day of the month?
Yep, on layer 1, trying yes, to give you an example that
Okay.
I just populated all the trips that were all Vegas, LA's in layer 1, and I want a 40 to 50 hour line. It's going to look through all these trips to do 40 to 50. If my target credit range is higher than that it requires me to, it's still looking in my layer 1 of all those trips to satisfy that target credit range that I must fly.
Okay.
Does that help?
Well, yeah, that does. But I
Good.
guess I still don't understand, what was your reasoning for putting those one trip in each of layer 2 and 3?
Control over what days my trips are. See, I get your point of where, it's easier to say when you're more senior, but a control over where I want my trips to be.
Okay, that makes sense. Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay. Let me see. Okay, can I go back to vacation low as long as I'm on?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
When you talked about vacation low 40 to 69 hours, I can still do like 40 to 45 in layer 1, 40 to 50 in layer 2. Right? I can.
For vacation low?
Yeah.
No. The system doesn't recognize that as you bidding vacation low. So you don't have priority. Vacation low, to have priority, you have to have 7 or more days of vacation, and you have to bid 40 to 69 in all 7 layers.
Okay, like in November, I have 10 days of vacation, so I have 40.
Okay.
I don't want to fly anything, so I'm going to mark all days off in layer 1.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can't hold that, are you saying each TCR layer I have to say 40 to 69, or can I say 40 to 45, 40 to 50, 40 to 55?
You can say 40 to 45, 40 to 50. You can say that, but the system is not reading that as you're requesting vacation low.
Really?
So you don't have the priority of vacation low.
So every single layer I have to put 40 to 69.
Yes.
Oh. Okay, well, I'm glad I asked that question.
Yeah, and you have to have the pairings in case it goes higher than 40, in case it gives you 65. So make sure as you have those pairings in there somewhere in your layers.
All right, and because then at the end, Liz said something like, in layer 6 and 7, put trips in it so it has something to pick from if it can award lower hours. I mean, that's okay. I don't know if that made sense to me.
No, we were speaking of beefing up your pairing pool, not in specific in bidding low and vacation low. It was about building up your pairing pool when it's reading your layers starting at 1, your pairing layers 1 to 7. Maybe a suggestion is if you can't hold layer 1, how many hours, Paige, did you say you have a vacation?
40.
40. So if you're doing the 40 to 69, use in layer 1 every day off. That's not vacation. Mark them all as off.
Okay.
That's your layer 1. And then your target credit range, of course. And then layer 2, maybe relax a couple days or a day or two and add some pairings that you're willing to fly in layer 2. Would that help?
Okay.
Does that help you in your thoughts?
I think so. I think that's what I intended to do. So.
Okay.
And you don't have to do that in layer 2. I mean, you can leave your days off blocked off in a few layers and then start adding. As long as you add some pairings to cover that 40 to 69 in case it goes up to closer to 69. As long as there's pairing somewhere in those layers, you're okay. And again, your days are not all marked off. Make sure you don't mark all the days.
Okay. I mean, it wouldn't make any sense to mark more than one layer of all days off. I mean, if I can't hold it in the first layer, I don't want to waste a layer.
Right.
Right?
But you know,
That's correct.
you're absolutely right. You're wasting layers, but
That's right.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't, 40 to 69, it makes sense. You could put them all on layer 2 and then be done with it. But you still have to bid 40 to 69 in all layers.
Okay. All right. Well, sounds good. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Paige. Great question.
Thank you.
Okay, that was great. Thank you. I think that vacation low piece is something that people were really confused about. So thank you, ladies, for clarifying that. I don't know that we have any reserves that are on the line, but we can certainly maybe touch base on the reserve bidding process, especially the calendar. I know there's always mistakes made when we're putting in our days off for reserve. Liz, do you want to go ahead and take that piece to it?
Sure. So the biggest mistake I think that tends to be made is when we're not used to bidding reserve, we go to the big calendar here and we start bidding. It's best when you click on the reserve tab and you know your right calendar, because in the lower right-hand corner is the expected reserves for that day. That's the number. And it says reserve, 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 reserve. I used to ask people to create their bid in layer 7 to make sure it's a legal bid, because you have to have no less than 2 days off in a row and 3 to 6 days on in a row. And then my suggestion is, once you create that pattern, then you take it and you break it up. So just say the 29th and the 28th, these days here, okay, say I want those 4 days off. I would not put all 4 on one layer together, because it allows the system to split. It can split off the 28th and the 29th, even when I could have held it off. One of the big problems we have in starting in October is coverage needed days, where there's not enough people bidding to cover trips. So the system is forcing people to either have it as a reserve day or bid trips. So even though I'm number 1 reserve, if I put 28 through 31st on layer 1, it could still split, even though I could have held them off. So you might want to do maybe 30 and 31st on layer 1, and then 29th on layer 2, or 28 and 29 on layer 2. You could probably do 28 on layer 2, because it's going to force the 29th. Correct, Beth? There's that new rule in there about carryover at the end of the month that I'm not as comfortable with. But
Well,
I still
it could force the 27th, so you might not get the 29th if you bid the 28th. It could give you the 29th or the 27th, so you could bid the 29th.
So you want these on individual layers?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so that is one of the things. So you should be able to see your award, and it'll tell you the coverage needed days you were forced to. In September, I flew with someone that was a reserve, and they had 9 coverage needed days for September. I was so surprised. But that's a good way to know where, maybe you are in your seniority, give a feel for it. And protect yourself, because if you're senior reserve, you're going to want to split these so you get them all.
So Liz, in the coverage needed, which would be considered a CN, right? The flight attendants could see that in their reason report of why they were probably forced to have, in the reserve world, a day of availability. Is that correct? Would they be able to see that?
That would be correct.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
Oh, no, go right ahead, Beth. Thank you.
Oh, well, I just wanted to add one more thing. Liz is totally correct. The legal line is 3 to 6 days on, but with that, you have to remember that if you bid 6 days on, and it can't put a flex day on that 7th day because it can't fly you into that 7th day. So that's really, even though it is technically a legal line, there's no room for flex days. So be careful on that because you have to have 4 flex days. So you got to consider the flex day placement when you're doing your pattern.
Yeah, I think we could have a seminar strictly on reserve bidding. I think that would, yeah, because there are so many pieces to it.
Yeah.
In the example that Liz showed with having the last 4 days of the month off, what you're forcing yourself to do is more likely to be on duty 5 to 6 days at a clip during the month because, you know, you get 12 days off. So by putting that many days at the end of the month, your patterns are going to have to be satisfied. So you might be on duty more days than you desire each time that you come on duty, right? You might be on 5 or 6 days. So just be careful with that. And Liz did touch base on something that she said about a new rule or something. So really what that was is that we were having so much trouble with you know, reserve coverage at the end of the month from month to month transition. And I think that we're still having that, but you know, we have some other problems that are going on within crew schedule. But the big picture here is that the company had came to the union and asked for an amnesty period with that language to allow reserves to be able to bid less than the prescribed patterns at the end of the month, like per se have one day off at the end of the month or only be available for 2 days. They were trying to break that pattern up just so that there would be availability of reserves at the end of the month. So we're in that period right now. We're looking at it. It seems to be working. I don't know that we'll sign a letter of agreement, but we are just doing a trial period. So that's really what that meant. So the patterns at the end of the month are slightly different than what the contractual patterns say in the JCBA. Yeah.
So Beth, flex days. I'm sitting here looking at the pattern that was created. I have vacations, but I'm not prorated because I have less than 6 days. So I get an additional 12 days. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But I believe in this pattern, I am not accounting for the flex days. I can see 3 right off the bat, but I can't see my 4th one.
Nope, there's no room for your 4th one.
That's right. So what's going to happen with this, even though it's a legal pattern, the system is going to adjust something on me. We don't know what it's going to adjust, but let's just say it might adjust like this. It might add a day here. It can add a day here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 2 flex days. And there's 2 more flex days. So the system will adjust your pattern to account for those flex days, even though my pattern was legal, the one that I just had. It's adjusting it because we per contract are required to give the company 4 flex days in our pattern. So it will adjust for that.
And Liz, just to explain about why it's not, why there isn't one on the 28th, why it couldn't put one there.
Because there's nowhere to give it back to you. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It will fly if it need be in situations where the weather could be real bad, or I can't think of anything else off the top of my head but weather. And you can be flown into the 28th, but they'll give it back to you in pay. but it won't be counted as a flex day in your pattern for bidding.
So when we're bidding PBS, we're bidding for days off. Is that correct? And then when we go into the flex day, golden day, that's when we bid for flex and golden day. Is that correct? That's when we're telling the system where we would like our flex days.
That's correct, Jim.
Yeah, but in your pattern, you must consider those 4 flex days to be available to the company.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Or it will adjust your pattern.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
I originally had the 8th and the 15th on the 4th and 5th. There weren't enough flex days considered, even though it was a legal pattern. I did not have considered the flex days that are required to be considered as well.
Okay. So we have about 15 more minutes left to our little refresher course here. I know we have several people on. We have about 20 people on. If there's any other questions that people have, please raise your hand. This is the time now to ask these questions. If we need to go over the 2-hour mark here, we certainly will do that. But take this opportunity to ask questions. We've kind of went through a little format here, but let's just open it up to just any random questions or concerns. We're more than happy to address. And then I will also give email addresses of where you can email questions to Liz, myself, or Beth, and we will get back to you, with answers. And we're only a phone call away as well. So anybody have any questions? Terry, go ahead.
Yes, just real quick. Can you tell me, how do you avoid, is there a way to put in that you do not want a 4-day trip?
Yes. Bid 1, 2, and 3. Prefer pairing length 1, 2, and 3. Just don't put 4. Make sure you put 1, 2, and 3, because if you don't, then it's going to include the 4.
Okay. Prefer pairing length 1, 2, and 3. Okay, thank you.
Paige, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, me again. Gosh, I know, Beth, I've talked to you about this before, and I came in late because I had trouble getting on, so I apologize if you answered this. But I am shocked that I caught you right when you said the number of clicks for when you're bidding has gone from 500 to 300.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was praying to God it would go up because I bid specifically. So can you tell me the reason why they would cut it almost in half? Because
I honestly don't know. That's just I don't know. It's just when they did the new system and the vendor they picked, that's what they picked. They picked 300 instead of 500.
So when we first started PBS, it was 500?
No, it was 300. It was 500 when LUS had it, and then it went to 300.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought this was something new.
It went to 300.
Okay, and so along those lines, because I have come to the point where I'm not done with my bids, I have hit, I asked for a counter in the past because I've come to the maybe toward the ends of my bids, but I'm not done yet. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I'm stuck. I can't go any further. And you can't delete, you can't do anything, because doesn't every single thing you do, whether you're adding or deleting, is considered one of these clicks?
No, you can delete. If you delete, that adds clicks. Yeah.
Oh, it adds them back.
You can delete.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's what I tell people when they call and they say it's just, I used to when I was, not anymore. Yeah, you just start deleting, like, especially if you do specific in layer 7, a lot of times you can delete all that specific and just do a generic bid in layer 7. Not always, but a lot of times you can.
Okay, because I will say this, and God, you know more than I do. I have come to that point where all of a sudden it's like, it won't let you do anything. And I tried to go back and delete, and it's like, it just doesn't allow you to even do anything. So I don't know if anybody's ever tested that with the PBS company to see what happens when you hit that 300. I think it's happened to me twice where I've been stuck and I said, well, I pray to God I hold something in the lower layers because I didn't get to finish.
Paige, are you?
Paige, I've seen it. People have called me when I was in fabric, and they called and they could not. And I've had them delete, and it worked. What I think is happening with you, it's probably just, what I suggest you do, and I used to suggest this all the time, it's just kind of frozen. So what you do is just log out of it. Just log out of it. Make sure you have, you can either, clear your cache, close all your other windows, and then go back in it.
Okay, that's good advice.
Yeah, and that usually it works when you do that.
Okay, great.
Paige, are you using the pairing ID number to bid these trips, or are you clicking all individually?
Well, I just learned the other day on Facebook your little trick of clicking on the sequence or the pairing ID versus individually. I did not know that before, so that's going to be very helpful.
Awesome.
And I'm glad to know that trick. Yeah, thanks.
But just remember, Paige, if you do that, you have to mark your days off because it's going to appear on every day that trip operates. So if there's certain days you can't fly, you're going to have to mark those days off on your calendar.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Okay. Also, could a technique also be like I click on the pairing ID and maybe it populates 20 trips, and could I then use a click to go in and just delete an individual one out of the pairing pool?
Yeah, you could remove it. You don't click it. You go under the view pairing sets and just remove.
Just remove it. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
From
So
the
that
view
might be
pairing
better.
set.
So rather than clicking 10 times to put individual days on there, it might be better for me to click the pairing ID, get all 20 on, and maybe remove 5.
Yeah. Or you can mark your days off. Like I said, you can mark before you hit the pairing ID, mark your days off, then hit the pairing ID. It won't show on the days you got marked off.
Gotcha. Okay. I like it. Thank you.
So I'm going to do one real quick. I just marked all my Saturdays off, search pairings. I'm going to do 1-day trips, prefer pairing length of 1. I'm adding it, and I'm just adding.
Liz, we can't see your screen.
Oh,
thank you. Thank you. Give me 1 second. Let me share. Yeah, I cut it off. Can you see it now?
yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. So I'm just adding these to the layer 1. So you can see that I'm adding every day it operates, except for I blocked it with the days off.
Gotcha.
All right. That's how and then it's less clicks. I'm trying to find one that has some more weekends to it. Bear with me. Next. There we go. Let me use this 7212, layer 1, adding it. Now look, I've added it all except for those Saturdays that I wanted off.
Hey, Liz, go into your layer 1 in your big calendar. You're in layer 7.
There we go.
Okay, great. Yep.
Hopefully that helps some.
It does. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paige. Good questions. So do we have any more questions here for Liz and Beth? I did want to ask a question to Beth to have a little clarification for our flight attendants. Could we talk real quick about the minimum and maximum constraints that PBS holds our flight attendants to every month?
Sure. Of course, we don't know those until PBS starts running the awards, and it's because it's global. So PBS kind of looks at everybody in the base, and then it determines, okay, we're going to have a minimum or a maximum. So if the minimum is 70 hours, that means that at a certain seniority, you're going to have to fly 70 and above, and everybody below you. If the maximum is 82 at a certain seniority, you can only have 82 hours. So you and everybody below you are 82 hours is the max that you can hold.
So we would want to have more of a minimum effect, right? Other than a maximum, right? We would prefer that, right?
Right. Yes, you would definitely prefer minimum, because that way, for people who fly higher time and for people who fly lower time, 70 is not bad. If it was 70. But usually when it's a minimum, it's a lower time, a lower TCR time. So you would rather have the minimum, but unfortunately, usually what I see is the maximum.
Right, right. We did have a minimum in DC in September of 78, and that started at seniority 262. So that was good, but we were seeing some maximums there for a while too. Also, can you talk about flex months when the company decides to flex the 90 to 95, etc.?
The flex month. Are you talking about like a weighted month?
Yeah, like a flex month where they could take you up to 95. We had that recently in July, where they can flex. The company can flex 3 times a year. So they did flex us that our maximum was 93, I believe it was, for the month of July.
I remember seeing that, but as far as the basis behind that, John, you probably would know more about why the company and the union have agreed to that, the 3 months with the.
Yeah, that's a contractual provision, but I think in July we were short bodies, and
Right.
they were building the schedule back up, and the summer flying was getting greater, and they just wanted to be able to have that ability to flex, and of course that affected the reserve call out, so that was flexed by 3 hours from 8501 to 8801. So yeah, so that was the flex that was put in our PBS in July. But yeah, I just wanted to make note of that for the flight attendants online, that can occur, but you will be well ahead of, they will let us know well ahead of the game if they're going to do that. Yeah.
And that's just like the weighted month, which usually is only December, but it can be other months too, where they kind of look at, and usually it is December, where they look at December as almost like 2 months within one. So you're kind of restricted to 35 hours in the beginning and 35 hours at the end. And that necessarily means that will happen, but it can happen. But that's not until December.
Okay, thank you. Paige, is your hand still up from the last question, or do you have another question?
Well, I have another question, but I feel like I'm hogging all the time. And I think you're going to get to it. I've been off for about 1.5 years, so I know that fabric is gone, but if we have questions, I think you're going to talk about some emails that we can send to you guys, but are there any other ways that we can get questions answered now that fabric's gone?
That would be the PBS guide and crew change. And you probably weren't on page when Liz showed how to get to it. And maybe you could show that again, Liz, but there's a PBS guide. It has a lot of information. And I mean, sometimes I have to look at it myself to remind myself about, especially properties that we don't use that often. But yeah, so if you go into flight service and you just click on crew change, and then it'll bring you up to this PBS right here, and click on the full guide. There it is right there. And all you have to do is click on the individual, what am I trying to say? The paragraph that you're looking for, like the line, just click on it and it'll take you right to it.
Okay. But I mean, if I just didn't know how to bid to accomplish what I wanted, I guess I'd really just have to pay a bidding site, perhaps.
There's no bidding sites, because bidding sites are allowed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but there is really no place to go to anymore.
So I think that Paige and others could email FA questions at AA.com if you have generic questions. I mean, they might not go very deep into the trenches with the answer. They might direct you to someone that might give you the help. We're always here. Your base leadership, you can always email me or text me if I don't know the answer and I can't get in touch with our professionals here, Beth and Liz. I can always go through APFA. You know, you can always call the contract and scheduling desk at APFA for questions, to have questions answered. So there's always a way to get your question answered. But unfortunately, we don't have anything like the fabric that we can go to at this time.
Okay, thank you so much.
Now, I will tell you, there is, and a lot of people don't know this, but if you go into Crew Portal and you click on the link tab, that'll pull up. If you click on where it says support, it takes you to a form. And if you click the drop down menu, you can ask questions for TTS, Crew Portal, ETB. Yeah, you can ask questions of base planners. There's all those categories in there.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. Thank you for highlighting that, Beth.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Ryan, do you have a question?
Show it to you.
I did have another question about the target credit range. Sometimes, so like in layer 1, I am always specific. I might have enough trips that I like. I've gone through and I've created a schedule. I'm like, okay, but it would give me 95 hours. And I'm like, okay, if I could hold every one of those trips, I'm happy to fly 95 hours.
Right.
But if I can't, then I would prefer, can you put, you know, your target credit range up to 95 hours to cover every one of those trips? So if you can hold them all, you get them. But starting in layer 2, okay, now if I can't hold those trips, then I only want to fly up to 80 hours. Can you adjust your target credit range down?
You can, yeah. Okay, but this is the key to that. So let's say you start off in layer 1 and you want 90 to 100, okay, because you love all the trips in layer 1. So you do 90 to 100. Then you go into layer 2, and those trips are okay, but they're not as desirable as layer 1. So now you do 80 to 90. It's still going to remember that 100 mark. So it could still award you up to 100 hours because you bid that in layer 1. Because like I said, it's not layer specific and it's cumulative. So it always remembers the high and always remembers the low. But it doesn't mean that it will. It could stop at 80 and be done, but it could stop at 100. You just don't know.
Right. So but it's not going to immediately, since you did 90 to 100 in layer 1 and you couldn't hold those trips. So say you only got 60 hours of what you had in layer 1. Starting in layer 2, it's going to now look to see if you can hold 80, not 90.
It's going to look at 80 to 100. Yep.
Right.
Yep. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so do we have any other questions right now? So we'll go ahead and close up here for today. A couple things that I wanted to tell you, and I know Liz and Beth had showed you. There's a lot of information on crew change that you can find on JetNet, and we've already saw that on the screen here. Also, your scheduling and reserve sections in the JCBA are Section 10 and Section 12. You can review those on your tablet or at the APFA website. That's where you'll find the JCBA contract. You can always go through that. Also, if you aren't, if you're on Facebook and you would like to join our union Facebook page, it is DCA Flight Attendant Union, and the flight attendant is spelled out. And it's a private group. And if you're not on the group, go ahead and just apply to join, and then I will accept it. And I put a lot of things on there that are in real time, a lot of things on there that I think that you might need to know, notifications, events, things of that nature. So it's a good little place to find out maybe things with, in real time. Don't forget that tomorrow PBS does close at noon Central. So get your bids in by noon Central tomorrow. Beth, could you tell us real quick about the Miss Award process and when that opens and closes?
Sure. Okay, so if you get your award and you feel that something's wrong, or you look through your reason report and it says you have a 30 and 7 problem and that's why you didn't get a trip, and actually you waived your 30 and 7, if you go back again into Crew Portal and click on the links and then click support, and then you're going to click for the either PBS challenge or PBS question, and you're going to write a little summary of what you think is wrong, and you can put in there, I waived my 30 and 7 and it did not award me a trip in the reason report because of a 30 and 7, and you just submit that. That goes to the Miss Award team. We research it and we see what's going on, and if in fact everything is as you say it is, we send it up to the PBS admins. The PBS admins then review it, send it up to the vendor, and then they let you know whether you do in fact have a Miss Award or you don't. And you will be notified again in the same place that you submitted the challenge. That's where your information is going to come back, whether why that happened, or you do have a Miss Award or you don't have a Miss Award. So just keep checking that. But do go over your award carefully, because there are Miss Awards and they happen every month. So sometimes, we had one that came in too late and he actually did have a Miss Award, but nothing could be done because it was too late. So the Miss Awards open on the 18th at 12 noon Central, and they close on the 24th at 12 noon Central.
Did we lose John?
We must have.
Okay. So.
I'm sorry, I was.
There we go.
So that we do have a. We do have a. Can you hear me?
Where you're going, you're kind of fading in and out, John.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a PS award process through APFA. What they suggest is you go through the support tab originally, and in AOS, look at your award. If your award is deemed that it is not a Miss Award, and strongly that it is, then we suggest that you to pbs@apfa.org, but you're going to have to do it within that same time frame through the 24th. But APFA National can help you, as well as the company Miss Award program. Okay, so I just wanted to let you guys know that. So one more thing before we go, I wanted to just give you my phone number and my email address. You can go ahead and call me, text me, or email me. If you would like to have Beth or Liz's email address, then I can send that to you, or if there's anything that I can do to help if you do have questions. So once again, my number is 724-513-0131, and my APFA email address is jpennell@apfa.org. So that's JPENNEL@apfa.org. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming on. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Beth. It's been a great presentation. We're probably going to have a few more of these throughout the year. I know that the December bidding is going to always be challenging. We have some different logic that we go by in December. So look for maybe one of these classes or two of them in November, and we can give you some updates on that logic that is going to be in place for December. So if there's no other questions, then we'll go ahead and go for the day. Once again, thank you for joining, and have a great day. Fly safe.
Thanks,
Thank you,
John. Thank
everybody.
you, Beth. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Carrie,
everybody.
I'm still here. I won't hang up.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.